Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Our webinar today is called Transforming National Family Learning Insights into Local Library Impact. My name is Kayla Fargo, and I'm the Director of Marketing here at Demco Software. I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. Before we dive into today's webinar content, I would like to quickly start by highlighting who Demco Software is. At Demco Software, we're committed to developing tools that make it easier for you to engage your community. From managing your events to running year-round reading programs to connecting your patrons to everything your library offers through a user-friendly mobile app, the Demco Discover platform is a suite of software tools that help you solve the real challenges your library faces. We also offer a variety of free resources, such as educational blog posts and webinars like the one you're attending today. You can view these resources by visiting demcosoftware.com. And now just a few logistics before we get started. Due to the number of participants on today's webinar, your phone lines have been muted. If you have questions during the presentation, please feel free to ask them in the questions box of GoToWebinar. We'll answer as many as possible at the end of today's presentation. The slides from today's webinar will be emailed to participants within a couple days. You can also download them immediately from the GoToWebinar control panel under Handouts. When you leave the webinar today, a short survey will appear. Please take a minute to answer the questions and provide feedback and ideas for future webinar topics. I'd now like to welcome today's panelists. Mari Nowitz is an energetic youth services librarian with the Timberland Regional Library, based in Tumwater, Washington. She believes in constantly exploring the needs of her community in order to provide fresh, engaging, and successful programming. Emily Sedgwick serves as a project specialist for the National Center for Families Learning, where she provides support for the Toyota Family Learning Program and NCFL's Vice President of Family Engagement Initiatives. As NCFL's staff librarian, she also works to develop family literacy relationships with libraries across the country. Before joining NCFL in 2014, she served as the federal government documents and reference librarian for the Kentucky Department for Libraries and Archives. And then lastly, but not leastly, we have Jackie Flavin, who is our customer intimacy manager here at Demco. In her role, Jackie follows library trends and leads customer research initiatives to ensure that Demco solutions are centered on the ever-evolving needs of you, librarians. If you registered for today's webinar prior to this week, you probably received a survey invitation. That came from Jackie. She's going to share the insights that we were able to glean from your responses later on in today's webinar. So before we dive into the meat of today's presentation, I am going to let Mari and Emily set the stage a little bit and introduce their organizations. I think that context will be helpful as you hear their perspectives on family learning and family literacy. Mari?
Okay, hello everyone. So I am Mari. Here's an image of the library system that I work for, Timberland Regional Library. We are a 5-county rural library district. We serve about 500,000 people. We have 27 physical locations, and they span more than 7,000 square miles. It's a really big library system. Later on, I'll be talking about our this past year's summer library program. And this past summer, we had over 16,000 participants, which was up from the year before. We had a little over 13,000, and we're really excited about some of the changes we made, and I'll look forward to sharing some of those things with you later.
And then Emily.
Hi, you guys. This is Emily at NCFL. I don't have an interesting illustration like Mari showed for her library, so I had to throw up pictures of cute kids because that's one of the benefits of where I work. So as our name says, we're a national organization, and although we serve communities across the country, we're actually located, our home base is in Louisville, Kentucky. And we are a nonprofit. We work with community-based organizations, schools, and of course libraries in more than 140 U.S. communities. So our focus is on empowering parents and children living in poverty and struggling with low literacy and language skills to improve their lives. And we do that by emphasizing the importance of 2-generation programming, and we develop and implement and document the best practices, networks, and learning tools that we've discovered in our work over the past almost 30 years now.
Awesome, thank you. So again, before we dive into the content of today's webinar, I do want to remind you all why you're here. So these learning objectives should look familiar. You saw these when you registered for today's webinar, but to just kind of set the stage a little bit, I wanted to revisit these and make sure that we're all on the same page about what to expect from today's presentation. So first and foremost, Mari and Emily are going to spend some time talking about why your library's mission relies on family engagement and literacy. Why is this whole notion of family engagement and family literacy so important? Next, we will talk about some key strategies that we think are really important to ensure that you're incorporating family engagement and literacy into your library's programs. And then lastly, we're going to explore a case study of sorts. Mari is going to share with us some key tactics that they've incorporated into their library's summer reading program that really emulate some of these notions related to family engagement and literacy that we're going to touch on today. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to them.
Thanks, Kayla. So this is Emily again. One of the main things that I want to start off talking about is the difference between family engagement and family literacy. When I've been working with libraries in different programs that we have here at NCFL, I've noticed that there's a little bit of confusion with those terms. And they're both very worthwhile programs and important for libraries to incorporate, whether they're doing the less intensive family engagement or the more involved family literacy. But there is a difference between the two, so I kind of want to talk through a little about that. So we'll start off with family engagement, and what that is at the most basic level is making sure that you are welcoming all the members of a family unit to your library programs. You're personally greeting people as they come into your building. You're thinking about the community that you have and making sure that you have spaces that consider all the different needs that you might have. If you have low literacy people, have you considered having iconographic signage versus word signage? If you have a large community of people who speak different languages, have you thought about having language materials that are available to those folks so that they don't have to read in English, especially if they're struggling with literacy? Have you got furniture in your space that it takes into consideration all the different people that you serve in your community? Have you got adult-sized chairs in the children's space so that adults can sit and read books with their kids? Have you got toys in different places so that kids can be engaged when their parents are looking for things? So a lot of those different things to take into consideration when you're looking at family engagement just as a whole. And then you're making sure that your programs that you do have something for everyone. So if children are being invited in to do a program like a story time or a puppet show or something like that, are you making sure to include your parents in that and making sure that the parents understand why the children are being invited in and what they could learn from the program and how the children can be guided by their parents while they're there and after they go home, things they can take with them. And again, like I said, making sure your space is comfortable for everyone and making sure that everybody has fun is important too. Next slide, please, Kayla. So family literacy is a little more defined, whereas family engagement can be a number of different things. Family engagement is what a lot of libraries are already doing. Story times a lot of times involve parents or grandparents or caregivers of one kind or another. Family literacy is a little more structured. And the traditional family literacy, what we think of as family literacy here at NCFL, has 4 components. So the first one is high quality children's education. It's not just a daycare, it's where children are actually being engaged in learning. And that can start from the very earliest ages, as we all know, because we do lap sits for infants and toddlers and things like that. And it also involves some form of adult education or skill building. And this can be English as a second language students, it can be people trying to get their GED, it can be people who are looking for career readiness skills, it can be a lot of different things. Then there's parent time. And this is where parents are invited in to have time just for them, where they address goals that they may have for themselves or their children, where they learn to be good advocates for their children in school. They might talk about things like financial literacy. It can be a number of different things, but it's engaging the parents in things that are important to them as parents. And then the last, and what we kind of call our sweet spot, is packed time, which is parents and children together time. And this is really important because it kind of allows the parents to practice what they may have learned in parent time or what they may have learned in their skill building classes with their children in kind of a safe space So they've got librarians who are there to help them if they need a little bit of encouragement or if they need a little bit of help. They didn't quite get what they discussed in parent time. But that's what we really think is important, is getting the parents to engage with their children in a safe space and then showing them how they can carry those skills that they've learned into the home to keep that learning going when they're at home. Next slide. So why we think both of these are mission critical for your library is we know that libraries have the mission of serving their communities. So family engagement and literacy program can bring in entire families all at once. It's not just kids being dropped off for story time or to peruse the books, and it's not just parents coming in to check out a DVD. It's bringing in everybody at the same time and making sure that they're all engaged while they're there. It promotes community engagement, which I know is a big push in the library world right now. I read about this all the time, and I think a lot of libraries are actually hiring community engagement librarians, which I think is really exciting. So it promotes parent-to-parent engagement. It also promotes parents feeling more secure within their communities where they can go out and talk to other people or maybe look for a job if they don't currently have one, things like that. And then family engagement events also allow staff to talk to families while they're there as a whole and kind of gauge the services that they might want or need. And that could lead to the possibility of expanding into family literacy if that turns out to be warranted. If you see families that need ESL services and they haven't necessarily asked for them, or if you see families that maybe a lot of them are looking to get their GEDs, then you could start programming in that direction and offering their kids services at the same time. So these are just some of the points to consider if you're looking at why this might be important to be included in your library. Next slide.
All right, great. Thanks, Emily. So now the next section that we want to explore is digging a little bit deeper into what Emily was talking about relative to family engagement and family literacy. We want to talk about some strategies that your library could use to elevate your commitment to family engagement and family literacy. So you'll see that the three strategies we're going to focus on today are to eliminate silos within your organization, within your library, to build administrative support within your library, and also to dedicate time and resources to staff training.
Thanks everyone for responding to the survey we sent out. It's just really awesome to bring your experience into the conversation here today. So just wanted to share some cool insights that we learned from your responses. So we asked what your libraries are doing around family engagement, and most of you are starting to offer or are already offering programs and services. Most of you said that your programs have been successful, which is awesome. That's great to hear. We also asked about family learning, and most of you are at the explore stage of this topic, but you really want to add more. So this is awesome. This webinar is a great place for all of us to be. We have a lot of people experimenting and wanting to learn or do more. So make sure to share your experiences in the comment section as we go to have a rich dialogue in there as well. We also asked you about the challenges that you experience in leading your family engagement and family learning programming. And aside from staff, budget, and time constraints, which who doesn't struggle with all of those? I think every organization has those challenges. But aside from those classic challenges, some of the bigger challenges you noted are administrative support, staff professional development, and department silos. So this is great because the webinar is going to address some of these things.
Well, that's good to know that we're going to address some of the problems that you guys are having. I'm not happy to hear you have the problems, but I'm glad to know that we're going to talk about some of them today. So you'll notice that Mari and I are going to kind of bounce back and forth. I'm going to talk about the whys and the hows, and then Mari is going to give you examples of how these things have been addressed at her library at Timberland. So the why and the how of eliminating silos, this one is a little bit, in my mind, it's kind of a no-brainer, but I know in some libraries it's kind of a struggle. Cross-departmental communication, it means less duplication of effort if you think about it, because you're talking to each other. The adult services person might be getting ready to do a program on something that you'd be like, well, I could do that with children too, and then we could do it at the same time, and the children will be engaged in one place and the adults will be engaged in another. So the adult services people don't have to worry about childcare during their time, and the children's services people can have just quality focused time with the kids that they're wanting to teach. So if those things are offered simultaneously and there's communication going on, then all the staff are working toward the same goal of serving the communities. And they're supporting one another and they're complementing each other. So that can be a very helpful thing. When you're serving families as a unit, it requires the departments to coordinate services and talk to one another. And then the last point that I wanted to make is if you facilitate meetings with all the staff, and I mean all the staff in the library, that includes everybody from circulation staff to if you have janitorial staff that would be involved, but you want everybody to know what you're doing as far as family programming so that they know to welcome people no matter what they look like or what language they're speaking or anything along those lines. You want everybody to be on board with what you're doing and understand who the people are who are coming into the library. So all the staff can and should be involved, and you let everybody know that they have a role in making the families feel welcome and achieve the goals that they're there to achieve. Next slide.
All right, so this is Mari. I'm here with a real life example. So I feel like I feel sort of new to the concept of eliminating silos. I feel like our library is starting down this path and it is awesome. The first time I was really aware of it was when staff in my building, my branch, we started what is now a yearly after hours craft program for everyone. It's really an all ages program. Both adult services and youth services staff planned and executed the program together and had lots of different stations of fun things that all ages would enjoy doing. Some of them were easier for younger kids to do. We were expecting all different kinds of patrons, families with kids, adults without kids, all different. It was really for everyone, and it has turned into an all ages STEAM program rather than just a craft program. So it still has the art component, but it has lots of other fun things too, and it's still going strong, which is great. Later in the webinar, I'm going to share how our library system is using this eliminating silos to work on our summer library program. But here on the slide is another example. Going forward, our library system has two priorities for 2019. I mean, we have other ones too, but there are these specific ones, early literacy and native voices. And both of these priorities are going to have a work group that is made up of both youth services staff and adult services staff from different buildings throughout our district. And those work groups are going to go ahead and spend some time with those concepts and figure out our priorities and create plans and expectations so that staff in our buildings will be able to really sink their teeth into this and do good things for our communities. All right, next slide.
Thanks, Mari. So the next point we wanted to talk about is building administrative support, why that's important and how you can do it in your library. So it's kind of obvious, again, like the eliminating silos, you have to have support of your administration in order to get a program really rolling. I've seen enthusiastic directors and I've seen unenthusiastic directors, and it definitely makes a difference. So if you have an administrator who really gets it, who can offer you support, then they can drill down that message to all the staff like we were talking about before, making sure everybody who's on staff understands how important their role is and make sure that they get that they're contributing to the success of the families in the community that you guys serve. So if you have someone on staff who's really excited about doing family programming, they can demonstrate to the administration the efficiencies and service that can be achieved when the departments work together and eliminate those silos that we were just talking about to serve whole families and not just one group of people or two groups of people, but whole families. And then family literacy, when it's done in the fullest form of a program or model that we call family service learning, it can impact entire communities and create lasting and sustainable projects that engage the neighborhoods far into the future. And I'll just give an example here of something that came to mind when I wrote this down. We worked with the Houston Public Library in a program called Toyota Family Learning. And part of that grant cycle was doing family service learning. And the Houston families were very low income in this one neighborhood and wanted to learn more about health literacy. They lived in a food desert and they wanted to kind of educate themselves and their children about how to eat better and how to be healthier. And one of the things they discovered is that people in that area tend to not drink enough water. So they did an entire campaign. They created flyers where they went in the community and talked about drinking water. They bought a bunch of water bottles and created special labels for them and took them out into the community and handed them out to people just to do kind of a public service awareness campaign. And they also talked to the city administrators, and they had enough impact on the city that Houston actually declared Drink Water Houston Day. And to this day, even though it's about 5 years after that was started by those families, it's still being celebrated in Houston. So that's just one example that we've seen of how family literacy, family service learning can actually affect a community over the long term. Next slide.
All right, this is Mari. Thank you, Emily. So I feel really lucky. I work for a library system where we do have a lot of support at our administrative service center. Just as a little background, we call them district managers, and they kind of wear two hats. They supervise a certain number of building managers, but they also have sort of the guiding vision behind a particular area of service. So we have a youth and family services per district manager. We have one for adult services. We have one that's an innovation and user experience person, and one who kind of oversees circulation, data, and assessment. And they really work together well as a team. But even if you think you have support, sometimes you still need to be firm and advocate. I think our youth services district manager finds that she still needs to follow up and talk about how working together is important on a regular basis, and really make sure that team understands what working together entails. You know, it's more than just, you know, yay, great job, and emotional support. Sometimes it's actual time and training and planning, and sometimes that involves a little bit of education in a tactful way. When you're working with a team, in our instance anyway, when you're working with a team of people who don't have a youth services background, sometimes they might need a little help seeing why what children and families need, why it's important for our communities. If you don't already have a position that's built in to be an advocate, sort of an administrative advocate, we have that. It's built into the structure of our library system. But if you don't have that, think about finding someone, or maybe even a team of people, someone who's passionate about family engagement and family literacy, working with children and families, so they can have that as a lens. They can bring it to the forefront when it needs to be brought, so that you just have someone who has it in their minds, have that reminder of thinking about working with kids and families. All right, next slide.
So the third point that Mari and I are going to talk about today is the importance of dedicating time and resources to staff training. So the why and the how of that is my part of this, of course. Your staff need to understand the why behind their programs, and I've talked about this a little bit already. You may need to make sure that there's ongoing professional development for all the different parts of your staff to understand how to best serve the families who are coming in, and that may change over time. I know I just saw a poll the other day talking about whether libraries had the same number of people they had 10 years ago. And a lot of them said they had the same number of people, but the demographic they were serving had changed. So it's an ongoing thing to make sure you're serving the community who's actually coming through your doors and the community that surrounds your library, so that you're serving those families and not the ones that you think should be there or that might not be there, but the ones who are actually coming through the doors. You need to have ongoing dedicated collaboration and planning time. That's imperative. There needs to be time set aside for the teams who are serving the families to talk to one another, kind of bounce ideas off each other on the best way to help families realize their goals. And again, that could be cross-departmental, the children's librarian saying, well, we're going to look at this, and the adult services people saying, well, that makes perfect sense. And we've had the parents asking for that same kind of topic, so we can spread it across the age groups. So one of the things that NCFL does, and in my opinion, we do it really well, is professional development across family literacy and family engagement and different types of family literacy and family engagement that we specialize to requesting organizations. So like I said, we've worked with libraries, we've worked with community-based organizations, we've worked with school systems, large and small, in all those different iterations. And just for an example, we've worked with Houston Public Library, as I mentioned, which is a very large urban library system. We've also worked with San Mateo County Library in California, which is a smaller system that is actually very rural, which you wouldn't think because San Mateo is there in a very well, I guess well is not a good word to use there, but it's actually a very high income part of the state of California, but it has very large pockets of migrant workers and low income people. So 2 of their branches have actually found a very large following of folks who are not native English speakers to serve with family service learning there. And we've also worked here in Louisville with Louisville Free Public Library, where we have several different segments of people that we serve with demographics ranging from largely African American families to we have a rather large immigrant and refugee population here to not native English speakers. And they're all in different little pockets around the county so that they're all being served by different branches of the library, but they're doing it kind of cohesively by talking together with programming the different pieces of the staff. And they're also working with the school system to bring it to everybody. And then another thing I wanted to point out is the Public Library Association, which is a subdivision of ALA, has what they're calling their Family Engagement Toolkit. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about training your staff or just some things that might be out there, you might look for that on PLA's website. And they've also worked together with what used to be called the Harvard Family Research Project. It's now the Global Family Research Project on the idea book, Libraries for Families, and another publication called Public Libraries, A Vital Space for Family Engagement. And those both have really great examples of libraries across the country that are doing good work in family engagement and family learning and family literacy. Next slide.
All right, so this is Mari again. I'm gonna take over a little bit. I'll talk about some of that staff training component as I share with you our library system's journey towards family engagement in our summer library program. So let's go ahead and advance the slide. So where did we start? Our summer reading program it felt like it was really geared for school age kids. We had components for teens as well, but it definitely felt like it was a youth-centered initiative. The program development was led by a team of youth services folks, usually a committee that involved people from around our geographic area or in our different libraries. But we decided to make a change. Why we decided to make a change. One of the things that we wanted to do was we wanted a summer library program that all ages in our community felt was theirs. We wanted everyone to feel that the summer library program is for them. So for an example, when we were at the beginning of each summer and asking people, families, if they wanted to sign up, a number of us had the experience of going up to a family with a young child, a baby or a toddler, and saying, oh, do you want to sign up for our summer reading program? And they say, oh, my baby, she's too young to read. Or for adults, even when we started thinking about having our program be for all ages, a number of adults felt like it was really just for kids. So we wanted to change that. We changed the name of it from Summer Reading Program to Summer Library Program. We thought that would help, and I felt like, just personally, I felt like it really did when we were approaching people to talk about our summer library program. If they had a kid who was too young, a child too young, they didn't automatically put up a wall and say, oh no, that's not for me, my child doesn't read. And we wanted, in the past, we've had summer readers track the amount of time they spent reading, and we really wanted to engage more people in different literacies. So we changed up the way that we tracked engagement or participation in the program. We wanted all different kinds of activities, including reading, that build young people's brains and help with summer slide, and for adults to have some fun challenges, so that when adults participated, kids could see that, oh, this is for adults too. It's important for them to see. One of the things that we should have done was make sure to include adult services staff from the beginning of our planning. We kind of came to that after we started planning, but we'll do better next year. Another thing that we try to keep in mind too is we're such a wide geographic area. We want to make sure whenever we're doing a summer program that it's something that people can access even if they have a hard time getting to our building. So we thought about that when we designed what the program was going to entail. So I'm ready for the next slide. So here's a little visual of what the our reading, well, it's not a reading log anymore, what our summer library program log looked like. It was accessible for people to get to from our library's website. It was a two-sided thing. You can see on the front of it with the musical instruments, we had instructions for children's and teens and for all ages. The back, you'll see we had a number of different activities. A good number of them were reading based, but there were other things too that were great literacy type building activities. We really wanted to make it fun and inclusive, and the way that we had it set up, we have local businesses that like to give coupons to our kids. So when kids or teens finished, did any 5 of the activities, and they could do one as many times as they want, they could mix it up. It didn't matter to us. Whichever ones they did, it was great. So if they did 5, they got some local prize coupons, and once they did 10, our kids and teens got to pick a free book, a new book to keep. But for everyone, adults included, for every 5 activities that you recorded and told us about, you got a chance to put your name into a grand prize drawing. So that was fun this year. Next slide. All right, how is this possible? So we did do the eliminating silos, and we will continue to do that into the future as we incorporate both adult services staff and youth services staff. With the administrative support, I have to say we're lucky. We already had this piece in place. But if anybody wants to ask questions about it, I'm happy to share how we have that set up here. So really, to me, the star of this, like what made this change really possible, along with the working alongside adult services staff to make this really an all ages program, was that staff training piece. And what I've found was that while it was important to train people how to do the summer library program, like what the structure was and how to sign people up, as Emily said, it was so important for us to really make sure that our staff understood the why behind what we do. Like why do we even do a summer library program? Why is it important? And what does it do for our community? Even for staff who are well trained, our youth services staff in our buildings have been doing summer library programs, some of them for years and years, myself included. But what we discovered is that it felt really empowering and energizing for us to remember, why are we doing this? We're doing this to help our school age children not forget what they learned during the school year and start the next year ready to learn. And we do it because engaging with families who have young children with some of these things, these reading and literacy activities, helps them build all the skills that are gonna help them start school ready to succeed. So in our trainings that we did, we tried to make sure not to do just the nitty gritty, like how to do it, but really incorporate these things of why we do it, why it's so exciting. The staff who did the training, we did personal trainings at just about all of our 27 libraries, most of them. I think one may have escaped us, but the staff that led the trainings, our goal was to be supportive and enthusiastic and just be really excited about what the program is and what it was going to do for our communities. And then after that, we made sure to have lots of materials that people could refresh what they learned at those trainings. We had training videos that they could find on our internal intranet. We had talking points, like a really nice bookmark with talking points, so that if anybody wanted to brush up, if they had questions from the community, or just to like give themselves a little boost with why we do summer library programs. So we really, I feel like that training piece is so important. Okay, next slide. So thinking about our next steps as a library system for our next summer library program, more inclusion of adult services staff in our planning. So going forward into the next year, the committee that will plan our summer library program will consist of 4 youth services and 4 adult services staff, and they will be the ones doing all of the tweaking of what the program will look like. We, as an integral part of our summer library program, we put a survey out to the community. We have an electronic survey. We also have paper forms of the survey that we can give to people. We really want to know how people experienced our summer library program. We want the good things. We want the things they think we could do better. It really helps us make sure that our program is really supporting learning in our community. And we want to continue to improve our training. I think that one of the things that I personally think we can improve on is doing more staff training, so that all of the staff, adult services and youth services, can help our adult patrons understand how their participation helps all of the kids in our community. So it may be clear to some people who are parents how when they do these things with their kids, how it's supporting their kids' learning. But even adults who feel like they don't interact with kids, they don't have kids, maybe they don't interact with kids on a daily basis. I know that when our children who come into our library see adults participating in the summer library program, it just really brings it home of how important learning and reading and libraries are to them. So we really want to help our adults in our community who don't have kids understand that they can have a positive impact on the young people in our communities. So I have some predictions about what might happen. I've been on our summer library program committee for a couple of years, and so I'll be rotating off to let other people experience it. But I'm guessing that our summer, they're probably going to work on making our summer log easier to use. They might tweak the way the challenges are presented a little bit, but we got a lot of positive feedback from patrons of how they really enjoyed the challenges. There were enough reading challenges that it made it feel like there was still a lot of reading, but they appreciated that there were other things to build other literacies as well. All right, I think that is what I have if we want to move on to the next slide.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. We do have a few questions that have come in through the questions panel GoToWebinar. And just as a reminder, for those of you still on the line, if you do have questions for Mari, Emily, or Jackie, feel free to submit those through the questions panel, and we'll continue to queue those up for Emily and Mari for the next couple of minutes. So the couple of questions that we have received, Emily, in your portion of the presentation, you had mentioned a few resources for libraries who are looking to get serious about family learning and family engagement. Would you mind repeating the names of those resources or repeating instructions for how people can find those?
Sure, let me go back to my notes. The Public Library Association, which has their own website, I believe it's just pla.org. They are the ones who've done the publications called Idea Book, Libraries for Families. That's one title. And then the other one is Public Libraries, A Vital Space for Family Engagement. So those are two. They talk about libraries. There are several libraries that they worked with to really see what they were doing in their communities and kind of point them out as best practices examples. So those are good places to start. The ALA has a family engagement task force, which I kind of found by accident one time when I was at ALA and kind of got involved with them. And the folks who are on that panel or on that committee are the ones who were involved with those publications with the Global Family Research Project or the Harvard Family Research Project. The people who did the publications are the same, but they moved from Harvard to their own organization. We also have some other resources if you guys are interested. NCFL has done some work with the Urban Libraries Council, where we published a leadership brief that was called Libraries Supporting Family Learning. So that's just, as it says, a brief. It's just a couple of pages where you can read a little bit more about family learning and why it's important for libraries to as a unit, just like we've been talking about today. And then besides professional development, another thing that NCFL does is, because we're a nonprofit, we provide a lot of free resources. And some of the things that we see libraries using that we've provided out there are they're for different age groups, but I'll talk about them a little bit. One of them is what we call the Learn to Earn Toolkit. So if you have adult learners or high school learners who are lower literacy or who are just looking for a career and college readiness tool, that is a good one. It teaches a lot about soft skills like writing a resume or creating an email, just going out and looking for a job, things you might want to consider as far as interview etiquette, things like that. So that's the free toolkit. We've got a site called Healthy Family Habits that's all about health literacy. We have a product called Wonderopolis, which I hope a lot of you have heard of, but if you haven't, it is a STEM-based website where every day we post a new wonder, and it can range from, I'm trying to think what today's was, I can't remember right off the top of my head, but it can range from questions like, how was spider web used in World War II? Or, gosh, of course, all the examples escape me when I'm trying to think of them in real time, but it's a question a day, and it has vocabulary building in there. It's meant to inspire curiosity in children who are in the, say, early middle school age up to early elementary age up to early middle school age, but it could also be used with low literacy adults. And it's meant to inspire connections between adults and children, because there are activities on there that families can do together. In the summertime, we have a version of Wonderopolis called Camp Wonderopolis, and we actually do a grant program for that every year for libraries specifically. And that is just a theme-based website that's a lot like Wonderopolis. It has STEM activities and lots of curious questions to answer and things like that, and it's very engaging. It's interactive, kind of gamified website. So those are a few of the resources that we have and can share or have shared.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. I think that this next question could probably be handled by both or either of you. There's a question about the role of partnerships. So I think that could be interpreted, the question isn't super specific, but it just asks about partnerships with other community organizations or companies or employers. Can you guys talk a little bit about the role that you've seen community partnerships play in family engagement and family literacy, and then also maybe more specifically in your summer library program? So Mari, that last part is probably more geared towards you.
Sure. Okay, I'll start. This is Mari. So thinking about, I'm trying to, on the spot thing, thinking about partnering with community organizations for our summer library program. I know that that's something that's really, it's important to our library system. It's actually, I'm looking here at the little bookmarks that we made, the talking points of why we offer a summer library program. And community was one of the 6 things, promoting community engagement through events and sponsorships and partnerships. So the fact that during our program, we had a number of businesses who stepped forward to try to help us have some incentives so that people got extra excited about participating in the program. Like I said before, we have a number of local businesses that give us really awesome incentive coupons to give out for the kids doing the activities. And this year, the Washington Masonic Charities partnered with us. A lot of kids were so excited about this. We have 27 libraries, and the Masonic Charities said that they would give each of our 27 libraries 2 bicycles to give away to kids or teens. And then there was a grand prize to one person in our library district would win a party, a really big, fun, crazy party. So that kind of thing, I feel like it helps our patrons know that their communities care about them and support the library, support them. It can really, I think, bring a lot of excitement to things that we're doing and give us some support that we need. I hope that helped.
Yeah, that's perfect. Emily, do you have anything to add on a broader family engagement and literacy scale?
Sure, we've seen a lot of great work with partnerships across the country. A couple that come to mind as having been super exciting and important. I mentioned San Mateo County Libraries. They had a partnership with a local food bank that provided food for a food drive that the community did in their family service learning project. So it was a partnership that the food bank had already done a lot of that same kind of work. So they helped the parents to learn what it took to do the work that they were doing. It helped to give the parents a little bit of guidance and structure in doing their service learning project. But it also helped the families to see some of the resources that were available in their community that they may not have known about previously. And it kind of extended the community out that way. So the parents could talk about what they had done, but they could also talk to other families they may see who might need that kind of support and just say, did you know you could go here to get food if you need it? We've also seen other agencies that donate food to libraries. One of the things we try to stress with family literacy programs is if you're trying to have programming when parents are just getting off work, or if they're perhaps low-income families and they are struggling a little bit, then you might want to provide a meal for the family when they come in to do programming, or at the very least, a really healthy snack. So a lot of times partner organizations will donate money or the actual food for those events. Another partnership that comes to mind is social services agencies. So librarians are not necessarily able to provide social services or referrals, but if you can bring in agencies or have partnership with them, they could come and talk to families about any number of services that they might provide in the community that families might not know about otherwise. So they could be like a speaker at a parent time, or they could come and be an ongoing presence when you're having the families in the library, just so that people can feel comfortable getting to know them and what they can do for the families. Another big partnership that we see between libraries is schools. So incorporating what the children are doing at school into what they're learning at the library. So it's kind of a natural handshake. The kids are learning something in school, and then if they want to learn more or if they need more resources, then they're going to naturally come to the library to get some additional help. So I think that's a really great partnership that happens in a lot of communities. And I wish it would happen in more communities, actually, because I think it's very important for schools and libraries to talk to each other and kind of know what they're each doing to help the families in the community. So those are some of the partnerships that come to mind right off bat for me.
Yeah, and of course, while Emily was talking, I thought of other things. So Emily, you are so right. The school library partnership is great. Our library system, many of our libraries go out to the elementary schools. They know to expect us in late spring, so that we can talk to all the students about what's going to be happening at the library during the summer. And I feel like that really helps families be aware of what is happening during the summer. Another thing, I don't know if you had a chance, all of you who are joining us today, one of the things that we put as an activity was give back to your community, just to highlight the fact that we're all in this together. I also feel like, I know it's not exactly a wider community, but I just want to go back to that eliminating silos thing. I really felt like working together with staff that we don't normally work together with, but now that we will work more together with, I feel like that built an internal sense of community that was maybe lacking a little bit in some of our buildings throughout our district. So yeah, Perfect. Those are my extra things.
Perfect. Thank you both. We will take one more question. So the last question, and I think that this is well suited for both of you too. So feel free to answer this in whichever order makes sense to the both of you. But the question is, my library is pretty small. What would you recommend as a first step for someone like me who's wearing 2, 3, 4, even 5 hats? How can I prioritize family engagement and/or family literacy at my library?
Well, since I made Mari go last time, I guess I'll go first this time. I think partnerships is probably the key to all of that, because if you are a one-person show or a two-person show in a library and you're trying to serve an entire community, you're not going to be able to hit on all of the needs of the families coming through your doors. So reaching out to the schools or the social service agencies or the community-based organizations who might have after-school programs, any number of things come to mind as far as just getting some support. So once you find the community that you really want to serve with your family literacy programming, then you can start to kind of hone in on, well, I can reach out to this agency to get some student speakers who might come in and help the students kind of understand what's available to them as far as support. Or there might be a community college close by that does GED training. So you wouldn't have to worry about that if they have some people who are willing to come in and volunteer their time to do some GED training for your adults. So I think partnerships is a big key to that, and something to really explore as a way of, I'm making air quotes right now since you can't see me, but expanding your staff in a way that means you don't have to actually have more staff, but you're including more people in the work that you're doing, and you're working as a team with some outside organizations to support your community.
And I would just add, I feel like when you have a clear sense of why you want to do what you do, what's exciting about it, what you'll be able to do to support your community, that kind of advocacy, like that kind of quick vision, sort of elevator speech types of things, can really help you build those connections, and also connections within your staff. If you think of yourself, are there other people? I mean, some libraries are very small and maybe really is just you, but are there other people that you could get excited about the kinds of things that you want to do? Are there things that they might be able to do to help? And I think when we are excited and know why we want to do what we're proposing, I think we can get other people really excited about it as well, and give you both emotional support of like, yay, that's awesome, but also the actual like help that you might need to get things off the ground.
Perfect. Well, I think that's an excellent note to close on. So once again, I do want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. Just one more quick reminder that the slides will be emailed to you within the next couple of days. And as soon as you close out of this webinar, you are going to be asked to complete a really short survey. I promise it won't take you more than 5 seconds to respond to. So if you could respond to that, we'd really appreciate it. And with that, thanks again, and have a wonderful rest of your day.